I quite liked. I read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Is a Holocaust survivor,
Right.
and he was asked about what made the guards be that way, and he said, "Well, actually, some of the guards were very nice, and some were horrible, and some of the fellow prisoners were nice, and some were horrible as well. They became capos who ruled over the other Jewish and black and gay prisoners." And it's almost like I'm sure everyone listening or watching knows certain people where they go, "Yeah, that would be that guy."
Yeah.
And what he said was, in any group, you'll find decent and indecent people in any ideology, any race, any whatever. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, that's obviously true. What I find interesting, though, is the English are currently ruled by their capos at the moment. Notice that Keir Starmer took the knee for Black Lives Matter. Oh, there are black people rioting. Well, we need to take the knee for them. The police will take the knee for them. The English are rioting and the black people in this country were rioting because someone in another country was killed. The English were rioting because a bunch of English girls were stabbed and murdered, and they didn't think there was going to be redress. And Keir Starmer came down on them like a ton of bricks and put hundreds in jail and cleared out a bunch of prisoners who were actual convicts who've actually done something to hurt people, cleared them out to make way for them. We're being ruled by our capos. So,
see, I take issue with, and we had this conversation on your show with you and Connor, with referring to, I suppose, the white population as like the English against the black people. The black people doing this, but do you know what I mean? Most of them are English.
Well, English is an ethnicity, so you can't just become English.
So that's something that was new to me as a concept.
Yeah, but it's true, right? It's a
English
true thing.
is an ethnicity.
Yeah, it's an ethnic
Isn't
group.
ethnicity abstract anyway? Couldn't you say Anglo-Saxon is an ethnicity, or
well, the Anglo-Saxons, we're the ethnicity that is produced by the Anglo-Saxons and the Celts, and that admixture. It's a process called ethnogenesis, where you end up with the English, because you could say, well, the Angles of East Anglia, they're actually not from East Anglia. They come from a place called Anglin in Germany. And so you can trace the genesis of their ethnic group back to that place. So that's where their language comes from. That's where their customs come from, because that's where it was created. But English isn't they didn't speak what we call English. They are the precursor ethnicities to what are the modern English. English as a language and as a culture, as an ethnic group, only comes from England, because it's not just that thing. It's literally like baking a cake. Like you pour the ingredients and you mix them all up, you put them in the oven, and now you have the cake. Okay, the ingredients may have come from the cupboards, but you aren't getting them out, and you've only got the cake left. So you make of it what you will, right? Yeah. And it's the same with any ethnic identity is like this. And it's something that you inherit from your parents, so from previous generations. So that's just what an ethnicity is.
So how many generations back does that have to go?
There's no particular limit.
Only because
it just has to be your parents had that as well.
Yeah. But their parents would have had to have been here for them to be English, or not?
Well, you don't have to be in England to be English. You have to have English parents to be English. This is why, on the decolonization of India, there was no question of who was getting kicked out. The Indians knew exactly who they were kicking out. They were kicking out the English, or the British more broadly. But they weren't like, well, they were born in India. They've been in India for 300 years. Aren't these just Indians? No, they knew they weren't Indians. They knew that they were from Britain. And so they told them to leave. Same with the French in Morocco, by the suitcase or the coffin. They knew, and everyone knows, and this is not complex, and it's not a wrong thing to say either. That's the thing. It's an objectively true thing that when it comes to the census, the black population of Britain will largely identify as being from Jamaica, because that's where their ethnic group was generated. So they don't identify as being from Africa, because during the process of slavery, the tribal ties were severed, and so they had to essentially create a new tribe of themselves in Jamaica. And the same with the blacks in America. They call themselves blacks, but that's an American ethnic subgroup. That's not an African subgroup, because the African subgroups have tribal names. Anyway, I'm going on big thing. But the point is, it is different ethnic groups. And
what about a black kid that is adopted by an English white family? Is that black kid ethnically English then?
No, you can't change your ethnicity, because your ethnicity is not just your biology, but it's also the history, the heritage, the language, the culture, the habits, the laws.
But those aren't passed down genetically. They're passed down through
They're
law.
passed down culturally.
Yeah, so the parents that adopted this kid would be passing down culturally those.
Yeah, and you can say that someone is culturally English. That's fine, but to say that someone is English implies the entire ethnic suite of attributes.
The lineage.
Their lineage.
And so many people have looked that up because you have to do a blood test or a swab and stuff, and then found out they were, they didn't go back 1,000 years.
I'm not. There's no like time limit on it where you have to. Oh, if you don't have this, then you're not this. And this is the problem with sort of the rational view of the world. Is that right now I'm looking for criteria in which to, and if you fall outside of that, then I'm going to tell you you're outside that. So that's not what identity is about. Identity is a very vague concept. There's very fuzzy borders and is not rationally determined. It is irrationally determined. As in, I didn't choose, no one sat down and planned that I would inherit my lineage from my father, who inherited from his father and his father, and who knows how far back it goes. And it doesn't really matter because it's a felt experience. You feel as if you belong to this ethnic group. And that's why when it comes to the census, the Black Caribbeans in the country put Black Caribbean as their ethnic group because that's what they feel that they belong to. That's where they feel that they come from. And that's not right or wrong. It's just the way that things are. And English is just the majority ethnic group of England.
So it's almost, is it fair to say that you're suggesting that ethnicity is somewhat subjective and self-identified?
It's in some ways yes, but in other ways no. For example, it does have objective criterion. So you can do a genetic test on someone and find out exactly what ethnic groups their genes come from. And most people, have got a big milieu of, genetic heritage because the world is big and history is long and people got married and had children for a long, long time without any concern about any thing like this. But it's just the way that things are. It's just how things are. There are objective criteria, but there are also very subjective criteria. And the way that you feel about your ethnic inheritance is also very subjective. It's very personal, and it's not rational. There are no criteria that you can lay down and say, well, I'm on this side of it, therefore. It's about how you feel in your heart.
So my family goes back, I think, to the late 1800s in England. They all arrived then, or however many great-great-grandparents, I don't know, from Eastern Europe, Jewish pogroms. I don't even know the whole, it's all lost, the story. I, however, feel probably more English than Jewish. And is Jewish even an ethnicity? I don't even know.
Jewish is an ethnicity, yeah.
But what if I want
That's why we can test for it in DNA tests.
Right, yeah, that's what I say to people who say that you can't. I'm 95% Ashkenazi Jewish.
Right.
5% was Iberian. I'm like, well, the hell is that from? I don't know where that's some
that's Spain.
I understood that. It could have been Portugal.
The Spanish Peninsula.
Yeah.
How you got that? Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't some sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a total mongrel. So.
Are you?
Oh yeah, completely. My granddad was from St. Helena. On my dad's side,
right.
And he married an English woman, which is how I'm English. My mum is from the Rhondda Valleys, so I'm halfway. I'm actually very small percentage of me genetically English.
So what are you ethnically?
Well, the ethnic group I identify with is England and the English.
But I identify with that. Can I be that?
Why not?
I feel very proud of England and the football teams. I'm not supporting Israel.
The genetic component is only one layer of a very complex phenomenon, right? So it's the sort of, I guess you say base layer, but if for hundreds of years, your family's born and raised in England, I don't see why you can't have a claim to Englishness. I don't see why you can't say I feel English, because what else have you known?
And if I weren't Jewish, if I was Pakistani of origin or whatever, but the same kind of family history, could I also say ethnically I'm English? Well,
the thing is, ethnically, the Pakistanis in this country don't identify as English because I don't think they do feel English.
But if they wanted to, I'm saying, if they were like me.
It's completely possible. I mean, there was this one Pakistani guy who joined the EDL. I would happily accept him.
He's English.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not to say that the genetic heritage part doesn't matter, because it is about lineal descent as well. So the thing is, what we're in the realm of talking about is tribes, right? We're talking about we're not talking about categories now. We're talking about people who have a relationship with a group and how the group relates to that person. So essentially, this is what almost all of human history was. And I mean, if you go back to the ancient world, there are a lot of times where you get two tribes who, for political reasons, are going to form a kind of merger. And so what they would do is the man would take a wife from the other tribe and vice versa in order to ensure that their children had the inheritance of both tribes. They would become a new tribe. They would find a new name for themselves. And this happened in Paraguay in the 19th century as well, where the dictator there just forbid Spanish men from marrying Spanish women. So they had to marry a native woman.
Wow.
Which gets rid of the colonial tier of Spaniards above, because after a generation or two, there's just mestizos, which is the name for the mixed group.
What a thing to order.
But the thing is, people in the past have been well aware that lineage and inheritance are important to people, and how this is passed on is a kind of force that operates in society. And so it was something people were aware it had to be dealt with, and there were ways of dealing with it like this. And in the modern era, the very liberal era, we're like, well, okay, I mean, what if our lineage actually doesn't matter? We'd be self-made autonomous men. It's like, okay, but that's not real. No one's a self-made autonomous man. You're from somewhere. You've inherited a bunch of attributes from that place. You've inherited cultural norms. You've inherited a history. You are that thing before you're a rational adult, whether you know it or not. And you can't get rid of it. It's actually kind of a part of you. You're kind of stuck with it. And this, again, with the liberal mindset, it's, oh, well, I didn't choose it. It's like, no, you didn't choose it. That doesn't make it bad, though. It just means it was something that was given to you without your consent. It's like, no one, it's just like your height, like your eye color, like your hair color, like your good looks. You don't have a choice over a lot of things in life.
Oh, I just thought you would.
I was.
No, good.
You don't have a choice about a lot of things in life, and you just have to deal with them. And ethnicity is also one of these things. But that's not to say that a person can't join the tribe. They can't be well-meaning and sympathetic. They can't marry an English person or, marry a French person or whatever if you want to join their tribe. But it means that you've got to essentially make some sacrifices on your side to gain the benefits of the other side. And this, again, until the 20th century, was well understood by everyone all over the world. And it's only in the 20th century, which is the century of liberalism, that where we're suddenly, what does this mean? No, it doesn't mean that you're bad for not being English or something like that. It doesn't mean you can't come in and, sit at the table, join the tribe, have Christmas dinner or something like that. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that there has to be just a small amount of understanding that there are people here who have a sense of self that you want to be a part of, and that's fine.
I think, it's something I've said to you before, again, about when I've lived abroad. If I want to speak to maybe very woke people here about that kind of issue, I'll start by talking about English people going abroad and saying, gosh, when I was living in Colombia, all the other English and Americans didn't even learn the language. They weren't interested in the local news. They didn't have friends from Colombia, all of those things. And your typical woke person will agree that that's terrible. It's the worst thing ever. And you go, isn't it a shame when other people come to this country and don't do those things? And suddenly they're caught.
No, you can't say that.
Checkmate, though. Checkmate. They can't get out of that, except unless they wanted to go with the bigotry of low expectations, like, oh yes, but these are poor people or something. They shouldn't learn your language.
But that exactly encompasses everything that I'm saying, though. They recognize that in, say, Colombia, there is an ethnic group that has a long history and a tradition and a way of doing things that you rightly expect foreigners who come there, again, they don't have to be exclusive or anything like that, but you should sacrifice something in order to enter. So you learn the language, when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. But the woke people will not recognize that here, because that puts obligations on the minority groups that have arrived. Say, no, you've got to follow the customs, you've got to learn the language, you've got to be like, ultimately what we would want them to do is marry English people and intermarry and join our families.
Get some mestizos.
That would be the best thing to do. And there have been foreign groups that have come to England and have done exactly that. And just hundreds of years later, because of their lineal descent is partially English, they become English as well. Like Nigel Farage is descended from Huguenots from like the 17th century or something. His name is Farage. It's obviously a very French name, but he's obviously a very English man. And it's just the way ethnicity works.
It is a tricky, as I think you say, really, it's quite abstract and ambiguous, and you've got to go, okay, well, it's not one exact thing or this.
It's many things, yeah.
One way that I saw it really used in an extraordinary way is in Argentina, because they didn't have the mixed thing going on. It was just go and kill all the indigenous, and that's why Argentinians are white. Yeah, they're just white. They just killed everyone. But they talk about that.
Lots of German immigration.
Well, there's that as well now. Yeah, some Jews as well. Well, they do though. They did. There were loads of Nazis moved to Argentina.
I know. I'm not saying there's a connection there, though.
but they are very white now. But they will talk about the past as like the Spanish came and killed all of us. They'll say us, and I'm like, but no, you're the Spanish who killed everyone.
You're like 90% European.
You
right?
were them.
Yeah.
You're their grandkids.
Yeah.
But somehow they've got the story is the Spanish came and they killed all of our guys, and we're all dead now. So, well, you're not.
So where did you come from?
I know it's extraordinary.